Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Willink School Year 6 transition evening tonight. I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Fry in just a moment. But before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the button. There should be a button at the top of your screen, which is for questions and answers. You can post your question up there and we will see the questions and we'll answer them possibly during the course of the evening and maybe even privately as well, because we do have the capacity to do that sometimes. And we will answer most questions today. But without any further ado, I would like to introduce the head teacher, Mr. Peter Fry.
Thank you very much, welcome to the transition evening, and thank you very much, Mr. Sizer, who's the deputy head, for introducing and is master of ceremonies this evening. In the commentary box this evening, we have the following staff. So, next slide, please, as Professor Whitty would say. Thank you. So I'm not sure what all these years are on this slide, everyone, but I have been here at the school for 14 years. Mr. Sizer, who you have heard, can we have a picture of you, Mr. Sizer? I think you're looking fairly smart, or at least smart enough to be viewed by the public. Yes, thank you, Mr. Sizer has been here 16 years, and the last 9, I think, as deputy head. Miss Browning, welcome to Miss Browning.
Good evening, and a very, very warm welcome to parents of students who are in Year 6, eagerly anticipating their transition to the Willink School. I would just like to say a few things about me, although this evening is not at all about me. I have been here for 11 years. My current role is as SENCO. I'm also a teacher of English, and many people would say that this is my second home. I'd say it's my first home, and we are looking forward to welcoming you into this very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Browning. Mr. Rutkowski, also known as Mr. Rocky. Mr. Rutkowski, are you receiving?
I certainly am. Hello, everybody. I'm not live. Can you show a picture of me?
Yes, you're live, sir.
Oh, can you see me? Hello, everybody. So I've been head of Year 7 for a while now. Been at the school for 11 years. Can't imagine myself anywhere else. And this is Miss Donithorne, who is my pastoral support assistant for Year 7, and we joined at the same time, and she's been doing this job pretty much the whole time, haven't you, supporting the Year 7s. So you're in capable hands. Okay, we'll look after you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rutkowski. I hope you can all see it from my view, and I don't get the full picture. All I got there was the right arm of Miss Donithorne, and there is more to her than her right arm, I can assure you. And then finally, in the commentary box this evening, we have Mrs. Edney. Come in, Mrs. Edney.
Good evening, hello. So just to introduce myself, I've been here for 5 years. I'm currently doing acting head of department for modern languages, but I have recently been appointed to SENCO. So I'll be working closely with Miss Browning this summer term on transition, and we will be working as a team next year. And I'm just looking forward to meeting you all.
Thank you very much indeed. OK, so let's just move on to the first slide. Well, the next slide, I should say, not the first. So look, if you could go back one, Mr. Sizer, that would be great. Look, a very warm welcome. We are conscious that we may not have met because we didn't have the open evening in the autumn. We had one of these remote, which was one of our very first remote outings, I think it was. So there will be parents amongst you who probably don't even know where we are, let alone have actually visited us. So I'm conscious that you're launching into the new school with very little information other than what you heard back in October or so on. But well done on getting a place. We're looking forward to meeting you. We will have 200, I think we've got 209 students joining us in September. Our number should be 208, and there are still some on the waiting list, which we hope to squeeze in, but we shall have to see. But we're looking forward to working with you. So on this slide, you can see that we have some key points. These points will come up in all sorts of presentations. The Willink School, Village School Global Outlook, which is our strapline, our motto. We have our languages in English and French and German and Spanish and Mandarin and Romanian, languages that we teach here at the Willink, apart from Romanian, but we always put that one in there because we have a school in Moldova in Eastern Europe where they speak Romanian, and students go from our sixth form there every year, or at least they did before COVID took over, but we will re-establish our link with that school. And then we also talk about engaging students, respectful students, and achieving students. So more about that in a little while. So next slide, please, Mr. Sizer. So I was conscious that it has been a long time, hasn't it, since October, where and then you would have got notification of a place here for your sons and daughters back in March, and you may have forgotten a little bit what we're about. So we thought I'd spend a little bit of time just reminding you what the Willink stands for. And it stands for, or as its motto, its strapline is Village School Global Outlook. And the idea behind that is that we are village school, so we're small, we're rural, we're a community, we look after each other. It's about the sort of the African proverb, which is about it takes a village to raise a child. It's that sort of idea: small, comfortable, engaging, looking after, inclusive. But then the school needs to be outward looking, and global outlook is represented by the languages we develop in the school, our communication skills we develop with our young people, and also the fact that, you know, the school is a bit of a side, you know, it's a bit of a backwater. We're not in the centre of Reading, we're not multicultural in that way, but actually we are a school that is very much outward looking, and that's very much part of our ethos. I'm going to read this through, which is very bad teaching practice, but it's important that you actually, this is our school vision. So the Willink School is committed to provide a caring, engaging, respectful and high achieving learning environment. We talk about engage, respect, achieve. So that's really important for students and staff. In partnership with our wider community, that's not just the local community, but the wider community. It also includes the wider educational community. We aim to give students a high quality, well-balanced education. So it's not just about exams, it's not just about certain elements of the curriculum. It's broad, it's balanced, it's coherent, enabling them to flourish and achieve their full academic but personal potential. And that's really important. It is about developing students' character and resilience and all those sorts of skills so they can leave the school as half-decent human beings and able to make personal relationships, not just about, although it's really important, they get those sort of qualifications. International school ethos, further committed to achieving excellence in language learning, and we'll talk a bit about that later, so you buy into that if you buy into the Willink. Students the opportunity to develop confident global citizens. So we think about, you know, charity, giving to others around the world, climate change, pandemics, you know, those sorts of things are global out there. So it's important that we equip our young people for knowledge and understanding of the global elements of dimensions of the curriculum. We aim to ensure that all our students are equipped with the resilience, adaptability and communication skills. So that isn't just a paragraph that's been cobbled together, copied from somewhere else, and we've stuck it on a bit of a paper. We've really thought through that is what the school is about. Thank you, Mr. Sizer. Next one, please. So if I take the first of those, engage, respect, achieve. The important thing is that when your sons and daughters come here, that they do really get stuck in. Engage, because if they're engaged, they're happy, and if they're happy, they succeed, and they succeed academically, they succeed in their personal development. So there will be COVID, but let's not mention the COVID word. There will be, it'll be back to normal in September, and there'll be extracurricular opportunities galore. We will have trips, we'll have clubs and societies and sports and creative arts, immersive languages. That's when you get dropped into the languages and then you bubble back up and you actually immerse yourself into learning those languages rather than rote in sort of English. It's about the breadth of languages. It's about a wide science and engineering, which is our design department, technology, our computing, our maths, very strong areas of the curriculum. It's about engaging in fundraising. It's about going on activities, team building activities. We would like all students to go on a trip, and hopefully a foreign trip while they're at the school. And there are some countries there listed there as where we go as a matter of fact, or at least we have done. And then expeditions maybe into the sixth form, as we have done in more recent years, Malawi, Thailand, TLC trip that we've done in the last few years. So key point, get stuck in. Ask your sons, well, what have you done today? What have you been to? That's really, really, really important. Okay, next slide, please. This size of respect. Now, the respect is, if you like, the bridge between the engaging and the achieving. It's really important that, and respect has every single level here, from self-respect, working to one's best, wearing the uniform with pride, really getting engaged, really. Self-respect, respecting others, others with different capabilities, different creeds and colours and expect all that sort of thing. It's about respecting the community, it's respecting the environment, it's tolerance for others, and also more than tolerance, but actually celebrating the differences that we have in our young people. That is really what it's about. And often if we tell students off, and we do, it's about them not really having the respect for themselves and respect for others and so on. Agreed sense of right and wrong, respect for others, concepts of fair play. We always want to win, and we're determined to win, but actually it's actually being sporting in that more general sense. Responsibility to others, environment, global citizens. That's what we want with our students. Thank you, Mr. Sizer. Next one, achieve. Yes, we do want our students to achieve highly, and by and large they do. Ofsted came in 2 years running in 2018-19. They've been very quiet. Since, of course, inspections have not been taking place during the COVID era, if we can call it a COVID era. But these are the quotes that we had during that time. Yes, Ofsted came in twice. Once they weren't invited, which was the first one, but the second one, we did invite them in because there was a new Ofsted pilot that we felt brave enough to ask them in and test their inspectorial strategies. And we enjoyed that visit immensely. Don't tell anyone. Some did, some didn't. But anyway, we did it and that was fine. It gives you an idea. We're quite an open school. So they talk about us being high attaining, average progress, well above average, challenging, more stable, supporting those with special needs, supporting those with least stable and high quality teaching. Thank you, Mr. Sizer. Next slide, please. So still under the banner achieve. Okay, so we've got engage, respect, achieve. These are our results over the last few years. Of course, the last one, 2020, were school assessed grades rather than through examinations. But I think it's fair to say the school now is at that high performing sustained level, and we would expect our students to, these are GCSE results, get the mid 80s, high 80s grades, 9 to 4, the old grade to C in English and maths and science, and the whole suite of subjects of English, maths, science, languages and humanities in the high 50%. Those are grade 4, and that gives you gateways to post-16 education. If we go to the next slide, to give you some idea of, and also quick simple statistics really just to remember. So about a third of our students get a grade 7+ in English and maths. That's and obviously lots of other subjects as well, but that's a benchmark figure. 7+ is the old A star to A. About 2/3 of our students achieve a grade 5 in at least English and maths, and that would be the old grade B and the top end of the old grade C for those of you used to the old currency. And about 85% of our students get a grade 4, and those students are able then to go on to do level 3 A-level courses beyond. 2019, we were in the top 5% of similar schools nationally, based on, well, similar schools. So that's schools of similar cohort to us in terms of prior ability of students. So that means that progress is very strong. And in 2019, we were in the top 10 non-selective schools in Berkshire. So that's everywhere from Hungerford to Slough. So if you take out the grammar schools of Slough and you take the grammar schools of Reading, of all those other schools that remaining, I don't know how many there are, 50 odd. We were 50 odd. We were in the top 10 non-selective schools. And moving to A level, about a third of our grades are A star to A. Last year, a lot higher than that. So because of the school's grading, but that sort of gives you the ballpark figure. Thank you. You'll be glad to know you've almost finished with me. So we talked about the achieving, and we've talked about the examination results and so on, but the other important thing is about, in terms of achieving, is about developing character, and we really talk about developing skills of individuals. So this is coming back a bit to the engagement bit. So when you have your sons and daughters joining us, we will really want them to get involved in leadership activities, you know, being a captain of a inter-house drama team or a sports ambassador, or to teach an element of a Spanish lesson, or why not join a Spanish lesson with our link school in Spain, as some year 7s have done recently. In terms of organisation, we devise a sports tournament for primary schools, or get involved with our Kiva fundraising activity. In terms of resilience, working towards grade 5 in music, or getting involved in our reading intervention area. These, and therefore becoming a free reader, really important. Showing your initiative, volunteering for the BBC news reading, news reporting award, or getting involved in Duke of Edinburgh, for example. And communication. We do mock trials in year 8, I think it is, so the students go off to Reading Magistrates Court and hopefully come back not in handcuffs. It's those sorts of things that are linked to engage. It's about building the individual, it's about achievement, but it's not just about the close definition of achievement, just about exams. So do please, when you talk, just get them to grasp the opportunities when they are here, engage, enjoy, and they will be happy and succeed. Next slide, please. So this is, you will be glad to know, the last slide for me. So in terms of the culture of the school, it's about engaging, respecting, achieving. It's getting the best possible teaching and learning. It's about developing their personal development. And we will appoint the best possible teachers and develop the best possible facilities in the school to support your young people when they join us. We're developing the curriculum all the time. We've got new courses that we're putting on in examination years. For this year, for example, we've got a course in criminology. There we are. We're improving accommodation. We've got a new, just behind me, along there, we've got a new teaching block, which has 8 new classrooms, and that will involve movement of the English department over there, and then the history department will move, and the special needs will move somewhere else. We've got 2 or 3 more, I think, more science labs, which should be operational by September. An extra language room. We're building up good accommodation. When your sons and daughters reach year 11, they'll have the opportunity, and most do, to join our 6th form, and we have a 6th form of about 200. By the time your sons and daughters are there, it'll be probably a little bit bigger than that. Beyond the school, because sometimes parents say, OK, that's good, Mr. Hires, that's good. Where's the school going to? What is it about? So in terms of developments, at the moment, we're a national teaching school, which is involved in teacher training, which is really important because it actually attracts new teachers and attracts teachers to want to train with us. And that is good for them, but great for our students. So we have very strong departments, very strong teaching. In September, that slightly changes. We're no longer that. We've lost that status, but it's not our fault. The whole system nationally is being reduced from about 600 teaching schools to about 66, I think it is. So we're going to tag along and be partners, strategic partners, to the brand new teaching school hub for Berkshire. So again, we will be attracting newly qualified teachers and also professional development for those who've been here a little bit longer. We are the lead school for the Maths Hub, which takes in everywhere from Bracknell Forest all the way down to Salisbury, which is quite remarkable, where we coordinate leading teaching in maths, and we get quite a lot of support and help and finances through that, and that is quite an accolade for the school. And then we've been developing Mandarin over the last few years, and this has been really a continuation of our heritage as a language college. and we've now joined the British Council Department of Education Mandarin Excellent Programme, and some of your children will no doubt be joining that. So I give you that as a picture because it shows that the school is good, great, wants to move on, wants to keep moving, because successful schools don't stand quietly. And on that quiet note, I think I'm passing to Mrs. Browning. Next slide, please, Professor Whitty.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. I think you're still we might need to
I'll turn off.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Yes, thank you, and a very, very warm welcome to the transition evening. We would like to recognise that the primary to secondary transition is a milestone moment for you as parents. And for some of you, this is not the first time you're going through the process. For some of you, it is. For some of you, you're going through the process with twins. And we want to make this as smooth as possible for you. And therefore, the purpose of this evening is to go through some more information about the practicalities of the transition programme and what life is going to be like over the next few months for you as you make that transition. So you can see on the slides here, there is a number of things that go into the transition programme. That starts off on the day that we get the names of students who are joining us. We start liaising with our local primary schools, the feeder primary schools, but also the non-feeder primary schools. And there are 32 primary schools who we are working with at the moment to support this transition for the September start. That involves a specialist primary to secondary transition team, which includes the SENCO, our head of year 7, Mr. Rakowski, our pastoral assistant for year 7, Mrs. Donathorn, our admin team, our finance team, the team who have been supporting you to come in and try on uniform, all to make sure that you have all of the information and the equipment that you need to start. This information evening is part of the process, and there are a number of other items that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail over the next 20 minutes or so. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is the induction days. With the initial apology, we are really sorry that the induction days are not going to be able to go ahead in the way that we originally proposed. We wanted students to join us on Thursday the 24th and Friday the 25th to have 2 full days experiencing life at the Willink School. Unfortunately, the circumstances and the announcements on Monday from our Prime Minister Boris Johnson that restrictions would not be lifted mean that we're not able to offer those 2 full days. But we really value those induction days as opportunities for students to come in and become more familiar with the school setting, to see it, to establish some relationships with key members of staff, to realise that they're not as scary as they think they are. To experience the transitions from one classroom to another, and also to experience different types of classrooms that they maybe don't have in primary schools. For example, the science labs, the drama studios, the design and technology studios, the computing suites. So the solution that we have offered is what we think that the best that we can do at this point, given the restrictions, which is to have students in for 4 lessons on either the Thursday the 24th or Friday the 25th of June. And during that time, they will experience transitions between lessons, a range of different subjects, a range of staff, and become more familiar with the routines in this school. And the hope is that at the end of that session, they will be able to leave feeling more confident about September. Now, I know from speaking to some students during transition visits with peer mentors that there is already quite a bit of confidence and excitement about joining, mixed with quite a bit of nerves, and that's perfectly normal. It's also normal for parents. You should have received today a letter with the dates and details of your child's transition visit. If you haven't received that, do contact the school office and we'll make sure that you've got the information. And likewise, your child's primary school will liaise with you about the arrangements for the afternoon of your child's visit and the alternative day. So we will carry on. We, as ever, are flexible and resilient and make changes that we need to make sure that the outcomes for students are as good as possible. You will want to know about your child's tutor group. Now, on the induction days, they won't have the opportunity to mix with their tutor group. to retain the safety precautions, to retain the integrity of safety both in the secondary school and primary school settings. Students will be retained in their primary school bubbles to avoid mixing. But from September, they will be taught in tutor groups. So you should know there are 7 tutor groups in total, with up to 30 students within each group. And the creation of those, a great deal of time, thought, liaison with primary schools goes into creating those tutor groups, designed to make sure that they are conducive to learning, to positive relationships, and that there is a balance. So that means a balance of boys versus girls, different abilities, a range of different special educational needs, where there are twins, which group they're in, are they on the same side of the year group? And some of you have asked whether twins would be kept together. We take advice from our educational psychologist, and the advice is that to develop independence, individual personality, that it's best for twins to be in different tutor groups, but it may be preferential for them to be on the same side of the year group studying the same language, which will be supportive of completion of homework and opportunities to access the same curriculum trips. One of the dominating factors when we create the tutor groups is actually the preference for the modern foreign language that's studied. As you know, each student will study one foreign language in year 7 and a second in year 8 and 9. So each of the tutor groups will study a modern foreign language. The first 3 will study Spanish, the further 3 will study French, and the 7th tutor group for the first time ever will study Mandarin as their first language. And thank you to parents who have already returned all of your forms with preferences for a language. We can't always guarantee that you will receive the language in the first year that you've requested, but there is an opportunity to study your preferred language in the second year. So we hope to make that happen. We also work very closely with the primary schools to discuss peer relationships and make sure that the relationships within the tutor group are going to be supportive and positive. But essentially the tutor group is going to be crucial in making sure that the transition is smooth, but also year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 is as smooth as possible, because the tutor, the person, the form tutor will meet with your student, your child and the tutor group for 20 minutes every morning, Monday through to Friday in year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Our hope is that the tutor for year 7 is retained throughout year 11, which means that you will have frequent opportunities to meet them. They will get to know you, you will get to know them, they will get to know any specific context that they need to know, and be able to spot any differences or changes in mood each morning when your child comes in. So that tutor group is really important, and what happens during tutor time in those 20 minutes is important. It's a time to establish routines, to sort and settle for the day, to talk about timetables, to complete tutor group activities about getting to know you, working with each other, relational issues, social issues, being part of the culture of the school, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you will find out which tutor group your child is in following on from the visits on the 24th and 25th. You will then have the opportunity to meet the tutor. So you will receive a welcome message from the tutor, and then an opportunity to make an appointment for a 15 to 20 minutes appointment with us, giving you sharing information about the school, but an opportunity for you to share information that you think that we absolutely need to know. It's possible that the primary schools have already shared that information, but this is just an extra opportunity for you to do that. And then there will be a learning review day in December, which means after a settling in period, once you've had your child's first school report, you will come into school to meet the tutor and to review the first report, set some goals and targets, and to discuss anything that you want to discuss at that point. But your tutor will be your first point of contact for anything that you need to discuss about school, be that about homework, be it about uniform, anything else at all that you need to know. What you should also know is that our tutor system is intrinsically linked with our house system. Now, you're joining the school at a very exciting time, because we are from September increasing from 6 houses to 7 houses. So that means that your child's tutor group will actually be their house team as well. That means that they will be allocated to either 7 Shanghai, 7 Berlin, 7 New York City, 7 Tokyo, 7 Paris, 7 Mexico City, 7 London. And I know that you can spot what they all have in common. They are all cities, and that very much ties in with our village school global outlook, our international dimension, and the fact that we do want our students to become global citizens. They will work with students in other year groups aligned to the same house in various different inter-house activities throughout the year, and there will be subject-specific activities but also extracurricular activities. Not all physical activities as indicated by the photograph, but some other academic activities. So that would include, for example, the spelling bee, learning poetry by heart, the maths challenge, the science challenge. It might be about taking part in a particular competition or trip, but there will be points for the house system, and we hope to foster that competition and getting engaged, as Mr. Fry quite rightly said. You may have received today our 16th edition of the WeLink, and actually I was reflecting when we look through the WeLink newsletter. That's our fortnightly publication that you will receive, detailing events and activities within the school, but also celebrating student success. And I think it really depicts our culture of engagement and fostering opportunities for students. So a few points to pick out. Or we have an example of a Year 7 art competition where students were designing a stamp to commemorate COVID and the NHS contribution to this. I particularly like the message on there, which is everyone's a hero because everyone is equal, and that very much ties in with our culture. The photograph of students there is actually a trip which ran last week to L'Ortolan restaurant. It's a Michelin star restaurant. I haven't had the luxury of going. I wasn't able to attend the trip, although I would very much like to have attended. But despite COVID restrictions, we have been able to bring France to students rather than taking them to France with their experience of French cuisine. We've also got examples of a computing project that students were involved in, and the Duke of Edinburgh initiatives that many of our students participate in and continue to be encouraged to join. We've actually, this award, Without Limits, is recognising 416 hours spent on voluntary work by our students over the course of the last 12 months, which is particularly impressive given the COVID restrictions that have been in place and the limited access to projects and places of work or initiatives that they would normally have. And the social value of that contribution, their engagement, their contribution to the society was £1,800 and £1,892.80. It's quite a significant achievement, really depicting what the school is all about. Further examples of the WeLink Way, you can see some of the extracurricular activities here, one of them being the Year 7 residential trip. I know that many of you have had rescheduled trips, postponed trips, cancelled trips, alternative trips. We very much hope that the current Year 6 going into Year 7 cohort will be able to experience a residential trip over the course of the next year. And in order to encourage students to get involved, because we know that some students are nervous, timid, maybe don't yet have a hobby, don't know what they're interested in, there will be a freshers fair at the start of the year, and I know that Mr. Rukowski will talk a little bit more about that. But we do run a programme called the WeLink Ways, and this will be a focus of the tutor programme, where students are set specific challenges to provide evidence that they are engaging, they are respecting, and that they are achieving. And some examples of that can include an attendance of over 97% on the school report. Now, attendance is so vital because we know that with loss of attendance, with 5% absence, it can result in a reduction of half a grade. So we do focus on attendance and being here when possible, developing that resilience. But also then, whilst we're here, what is it that we're doing? Are we attending a school club? Are we going on a trip? Are we taking lessons? Are we able to contribute to a school performance or a school presentation? But we also recognise respect in the community. Being caught doing an act of kindness is one of those. Now, that can be something as simple as opening a door for a member of staff, saying please and thank you, but that concept of being caught doing something good, we're always looking for the good, and we hope to recognise and celebrate that. And our argument is that if students are engaging and respecting the community, then that will result in achievement. So as Mr. Fry said, when you get to the end of a school day and your child comes home and doesn't want to tell you what happens in the day, you can ask about some of these things. What did they do to engage? What did they do to respect? What had they achieved? But you also possibly want to know about the typical day, and you will have seen this in the welcome booklet. In addition to the welcome booklet, on our school website, there is a Year 6 to 7 transition tab on the top right-hand corner. But there are key things that you need to know and your child needs to know. A typical day will follow a very strict structure, and that will be at the start of the day, meeting with the tutor for 20 minutes between 8:40 and 9 AM. There will then be 6 lessons, and they are 6 50-minute lessons, with a break between 10:40 and 11 and lunch between 12:40 and 1:20. And that is our typical day that we intend to proceed with from September. It's been slightly different this year for those of you who have children in the school because of COVID restrictions, but we hope that we are returning to that format next year. But whatever the case may be, Year 7s will have 6 lessons which last 50 minutes with 2 breaks. And they will cover a suite of subjects: English, maths, science and modern foreign language, whether that is French, Spanish or Mandarin, history and geography. Personal social health education is one of the subjects here which we really value. Personal social health education is the subject where we have specialist teachers, and not many schools do, specialist teachers to teach social values, how to remain safe, and that's both practical safety out in the community, safety online, safety during interactions and relationships with other people. And over the course of the years that progresses and includes career advice, practice for mock interviews, application for jobs, applications to sixth form, but that is a really valuable subject. And then of course there are subjects that we're able to offer that are not offered at primary school because of the site that we have, the specialist classrooms. So in textiles, learning how to use the sewing machine, and food and nutrition, learning how to use the cooker and the kettle and the oven to be able to make you dinner at the end of a long, hard day. So your child will study a range of these subjects throughout years 7, 8 and 9, at which point they will select subjects to study at GCSE and then A-level. Now, I know that one of the questions that students always have is about homework, and that parents have is about how much homework should we expect to receive, how do we know about it, but also as parents who are used to being able to go to the school gate and collect your child at the end of every day, how do you know what's happening in school on a day-to-day basis? And the tool for that, the most important tool for that, is ClassCharts. ClassCharts is our online platform for both students and parents, so you will each have a unique code to log on. You can download the app onto your phone, you can access it from a PC, and you will receive daily updates. First of all, about homework, which will include the details of the subject, the task, and the length of time that's expected to take to complete that. There is no strict homework schedule, so it will not be the case that your child will have maths on a Monday, English on a Tuesday. The homework is designed to consolidate learning and have the most impact on progress, and therefore it needs to be relevant to what is being learned at that specific time. We do not have homework planners, so there's no need for your son or daughter to make notes about the homework. The resources will all be on ClassCharts, which means that even if they forget, you can look at it. They will also have a green student book, which is like a little green exercise book where you can write notes to the tutor and your child can make notes to themselves. But ClassCharts is not just a homework tool, it's also a tool to record and communicate with you about conduct and celebrate success. One of the things that we have is achievement points and merit points, and they are all communicated via ClassCharts. So at the end of the day, when you, as I said, when your child comes home and they get to that point of grunting, oh, it was fine, you'll be able to say, it wasn't just fine. In English, you contributed a really excellent idea to that group discussion about diversity. Or in science, I see see that you completed that experiment and your hypothesis was very detailed. So we would recommend that you use class charts as a tool on a daily basis to monitor what's happening and to see how staff are communicating with you about events of the school day. More information about that to follow in September when you get your unique username and passwords. You'll be very pleased to know that I'm now going to hand you over to Mr. Rakowski, who's going to tell you a little bit more about how we support students during the course of the transition.
Hello, everybody. Right, what my let's go on to the next slide, or because it's just me. And Miss D. Miss D's here. Can you all see Miss D? Give us a wave. Hello, Miss D.
Hi.
So yeah, here we go. Peer mentoring. As part of my role as head of Year 7, I am also the peer mentoring coordinator, which means that the process has already started for this year. What it means is that we take in application forms from Year 9 students, and they need to tell us why they want to be peer mentors. They undergo some training sessions, and they're specific. The ones we choose are specifically selected because we think they represent the values of the school, and we want them to be able to help the Year 6s in that transition into secondary school. Like I said, it's already started, and actually Miss D and I have had the absolute pleasure of visiting several of our feeder schools. The only one we haven't been to yet is Sun, but we're hoping to see Sun next week. But we've been to our feeder schools, and we've also had the pleasure of having the non-feeder students come in yesterday. So we got to meet lots of your children, and there was lovely children. We're really excited. Hopefully they have enjoyed the visits from the peer mentors. The peer mentors came in. The purpose of those primary school visits are for your children, the Year 6s, to familiarise themselves with us, to get to know us, to get to know the peer mentors, and for us to get to know them as well. So they played some games, some sort of icebreakers, get to know you type activities, and a lot of fun was had. But it wasn't just about having fun. It was also an opportunity for them to raise any questions or concerns, and for them to feel like they had a voice and they were being listened to as well. So the peer mentors were there to answer any questions and clarify any queries, and just to reassure your children that they're in safe hands and they've got nothing to worry about, and their transition will be as smooth as possible. Okay, the peer mentors also their role doesn't end just there. So what's going to happen is when your children come for their transition days next week, the peer mentors will be around to be their guide, so they will take them to the different classrooms, because that was one of the main concerns that your children had when we went to visit the primary schools. A lot of them were worried, how will we find our way around? How do we know to get from one classroom to another? So in those transition days, we'll have the peer mentors as tour guides. And the peer mentors are also giving up their last day of their summer holiday, so they can come in September when your children start, and they can help on that day as well. So they're doing lots of things. When they will be, as it says there, they will be attached to tutor groups, but also they'll be supporting with homework clubs. They'll be arranging activities. Because activities are a good way for your children to really get engaged with what the school has to offer. Okay, there've been loads of clubs recently, and what the peer mentors do is they try to organise club to suit the wants and the sort of requests of your children. So in previous years we've had a group of children who were super into Star Wars. They love Star Wars. So they came up with some peer mentors decided to run what is now affectionately known as SWAG, which is the Star Wars Appreciation Group. And they get together and they talk about Star Wars, and I don't know what they do. Miss D's a big fan. So, but anyway, so there's Star Wars Club, there's Lego Club, we've had Harry Potter Club, Pokemon Club, we've had all sorts of things. Of course, there's sporting clubs to get involved in as well, sports teams to get involved with. But what we want is your children to not be bored at school, because it's not just about what happens in the classroom, it is all those other things as well. And the peer mentors help facilitate those things as well. And it means that your children can find like-minded individuals, people with similar interests, and make friends. So peer mentors, super helpful. Okay, next slide, please. Here are a couple of our lovely peer mentors. There's a picture of me as well, sporting some rather fetching purple trousers. That is my my Willy Wonka look. I have a variety of several different bright coloured chinos, but yeah, I'll let you imagine that. So anyway, me in purple trousers. Oh, this one's a stitch up. Obviously I have to present this slide because it's all about food, and I've got a bit of a reputation. I'm probably the #1 customer in the canteen. I have a bit of a soft spot for food. It's around my waist. But yeah, the canteen's great. Fobs, it's a cashless system, so your children will be issued with an electronic fob. Have you got your fob, actually? Miss Dieter, it's a little plastic purple fob. What happens is, probably can't see it, but you as parents or carers can add credit to the fob, or you can set up a direct debit. You can set a limit, like a daily limit, and you can also monitor what your child spends your hard-earned money on. So if they're just buying cakes all the time, you can have a word with them. But it's a nice way of you being able to monitor what they're spending, how much they're spending, and it means that there's no fuss and they don't need to bring cash into school. The canteen's great. You can buy food at break times and lunch times. There's snacks, there's hot meals, main meals, puddings, all sorts. But yeah, highly recommended. Uniform and equipment. Right, I've got a bit of an anecdote here. This is some fond memory of my mother. She's still with us, by the way. But when I was younger, my mum, she used to put labels in all of my clothes, and I at the time I thought, oh, Mum, it's so embarrassing. But you know what? I never lost a single item of clothing. Well, I did all the time, but it was always returned to me because I had my name in it. So that's my top tip. You know, do as my mother did. Label everything, make sure you have the correct equipment, because you don't want any expensive mistakes, don't want to get the wrong thing. So do check the uniform policy, the equipment policy, etc., that the school will have sent out with your welcome pack. But yeah, that's uniform and equipment. Is there anything else from me? Let's have a look. Oh yes, okay, I think this is the last one. Another thing that we do to sort of reassure your children and help them settle in. One of the things that we noticed from our primary school visits was that some of the students were a little bit worried that they're going to have gone from being the biggest kids in a very small school to being the smallest kids in a huge school. So what's happened is we thought, other than letting them have that first day to sort of acclimatise, get used to the school, we've also negotiated with the library to allow them to have free reign of the library. They have absolute exclusive rights to it in that first week, just so they can get their books out, so they can acclimatise, and it's there, it's a nice safe space where they can go and read and hang out, etc. Okay, so that is another thing that we will be doing. Is that everything?
So it's me again. That leads us almost to the conclusion, but we are very much looking forward to students starting in earnest in September. So just wanted to give you a few practical bits of information about that. The first day for Year 7 students is Friday the 3rd of September, and they will be the only students in school other than the peer mentors. And that's just an extra day, almost a transition day, for students to come in their new Willink uniform to make that journey for the first time with their peer groups. We will be at the school gates ready to welcome them with open arms and take them to the main school hall where they should register at 8:30. That will give us time to sort them into their tutor groups and then to take them to their tutor room, which will be their tutor room every day until the end of the year. Buses will be running as normal, so if your child is eligible for a school bus, They will be running despite the fact that the rest of the school will not be here, and the other year groups will then start on Monday the 6th of September, by which time your child will have been here, they'll have navigated the school, they'll know their timetable, they'll know where they're going, they'll feel confident that staff will be supporting them, and all that we would ask is that on that day, if parents are able to make arrangements to drop off and make sure that your son or daughter or children, if it's twins, know where you're going to be collecting them at the end of the day. And with that, I'm going to pass you on to Mr. Fry, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in September.
Thank you very much, Ms. Browning. So this is the final slide, really. It's about relationships, about communication. It's very, very important that we keep close contact with yourselves. If you need us, need your child's tutor, or you need a specific member of staff, then email the office. The office is open from 8 o'clock in the morning till about 4:15 for the attention of the member of staff that you want, and that will get to them ASAP. Okay. Do get in touch with us if you're concerned or whether you're pleased with what we're doing. We get both those things. We're very grateful to receive positive comments, and we act really quickly if we have negative comments, which we occasionally do. In terms of communications, you will get the Parent Digest, which comes out every Wednesday. What we found was that so many students get so many letters, and normally you know what it was like when you were at school. You would have had them at the bottom of your bags, and then you would have given them to your parents squashed against a banana. This way you don't have those crumpled, horrible, yucky letters that have been in bags for 2 weeks, but you get the Parent Digest. And therefore, any letter that's relevant to Year 7, we try and keep, unless it's really desperate, we try and keep to that particular digest, and then you click on all the letters that are relevant to you. The only ones that are not so, I guess, for example, COVID, if we have to make, as we have done, students isolated, we don't wait till the next Wednesday. We do actually contact you, obviously. But there we are. That's the one-stop shop for letters. And then we have fortnightly our WeLink, which will come to you loud and clear. It really tells you the story of what's happening in the WeLink. I normally put in a piece about some musings of what's been going on. And then there are photos, press reports, student reports, quizzes, everything that you want to know about the lovely things that are going on in school, and that will come your way too. So and they will come to you through a system called School Comms. So it's important that we have that information when you sign up to us and complete the homeschool agreement and give us all your personal details, medical information and things like that. And lots of people tune into the WeLink. I think it's about 900 or so clicks every week. Most of them are me, but some aren't. So we have quite a large turnaround on that, and it keeps me sane to know that people are actually listening to what I'm writing about. Reports, you have 3 reports a year. The first one's in Year 7 will just be a settling in report, nothing about big grades or something. We talk about flight paths and predictions of GCSEs and A levels and future degrees. That comes a little bit later. The one you get in October is, are you settling in? That sort of thing. So that's important. And we also have a learning review day in December, usually the end of November, beginning of December, where you meet the tutor, and that's giving the tutor's view, not subjects. That will come later on in the year, subject evenings. And then we'll have various PIEs, parent information evening, and the first one for Year 7s will be on the 15th of September. So once we've had a week, in fact we'll have had 1 and a bit weeks by then, won't we? 1 and a bit full weeks. So by that time you'll have questions like, how does this class charts work? Things like that. And we'll go through those sorts of things and talk about the term and how we're, how the term is unfolding for the students. So I think there is good communication, but as ever, we do want particular feedback from your good selves. I think that's it. Mr. Sizer, is that it? Is that the end of proceedings?
That is the end of proceedings, sir, but we do have some questions that have come in that we may be able to answer between us. So the first question, and there's been a few questions about this really, which is about the amount of homework. I know Miss Browning referenced that earlier in the evening, but how much homework roughly do Year 7 students get? Well, I can tell you, as someone who oversees Key Stage 4, which is Years 10 and 11, they get a lot less homework than students in Years 10 and 11, but they're generally maybe 30 minutes to 40 minutes a night, but it depends and it can come in waves. As Miss Browning said, they don't really have we don't have a homework timetable because it's impossible to stick to and doesn't really work, and then homework is just set for the sake of it, and we don't believe homework should be set for the sake of it. It should have valid learning purposes. So sometimes you might not get any homework, other times you might get a little bit more homework, but it'll average out at about 30 to 40 minutes a night or so.
Can I add to that, Mr. Sizer? If those of you interested, if you look on the website and look down to the school policies, there'll be the homework policy on there, and it'll also have the homework schedule. And that isn't a schedule in terms of a timetable, as we just said to you, but it will give you an idea of what subjects and how much and the sorts of homeworks that you'll get.
Miss Browning, this is one for you. And actually a couple of people have asked this. The tutor session where parents are going to meet the tutor, is that in person or is that a virtual meeting? I guess that's changed over the last 2 or 3 days.
Yes, sadly it has. So the intention was that we would be able to have you in school on site so that we can see the colour of your eyes, you can see the colour of ours, but sadly we're not going to be able to facilitate face-to-face in-person meetings. Instead, you will receive an email from Schools Cloud, which is a platform that we use to run online parents' evenings, or have used this year. You will then be able to select from a range of appointment times to meet with the tutor for those 15 to 20 minutes, and that will be remote. Some of those appointments will be before school, some during the school day, some after school, because we really want to make sure that it's something that's accessible to you. Ideally, we would like your son or daughter to be there because we want to meet them, and it's an opportunity for them to share information that they would like us to know.
Thank you, Ms Browning. A couple of new questions coming in live. One talking about primary schools. Can we talk a little bit more about the Taster Day afternoon? Because obviously we're having, Taster Day morning, I believe, rather than afternoon. Can you explain a little more about that? Will they need to go back to their primary schools on that day?
That's a very good question. So the format of the day will be that students will arrive at 8:45 in their primary school uniform, not their New Wellington school uniform. At that time, they will be taken to their bubbles. And the bubbles, for example, if they're coming from Mortimer St Mary's, they will be divided into 2 smaller groups, or if they're coming from Garland, they will be divided into 2 smaller groups. And during the course of that day, they will be students will be escorted to different lessons. So they will experience the transition and they will experience lessons. At 12:15, students will be collected from school by parents. And the reason for that is actually logistically, we can't protect the integrity of bubbles without mixing with our students. So they will be leaving before lunchtime. And it is then up to your son or daughter's primary school to decide whether they are expected to return to school that afternoon or whether they will be setting remote work to be completed at home. But the primary schools have assured us that they will be communicating what is required very soon. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Ms Browning. I've worryingly decided to put myself on screen for a moment, but I'm coming back to you in just a second, don't worry. So just to follow up from that, will the changes to the extension of the restrictions, will that affect at all special transition events for students with special educational needs and things like that?
No. We, in addition to the universal offer of the visits on the 24th and 25th, there will be additional visits for students who are perhaps more vulnerable and needs more contact and more familiarity with the school. We're working with primary schools and with individual parents to make sure that those trips are planned, and some of them have already gone ahead. So the students who need additional support will continue to receive the support as planned. We may just need to do it in a different, more flexible way, but we can do that.
Thank you, Ms Browning. Could just clarity, I think we did talk about this earlier, but next week when the students are in, will they find out what tutor group they're in and who their tutor will be?
Students will not find out when they are in school, but parents will, by the end of next week on the Friday the 25th, receive an email message with a welcome message from the tutor, confirming which tutor they're in, the name of the tutor, the subject that they are going to be studying, and then with that email will be an invitation to make the appointment for parents' evening.
Thank you. Another question that's coming up. I'm going to save you the embarrassment of being on the screen whilst listening to a question, Miss Browning, but don't worry, you're coming back again in a minute. We have a medical management question, which actually affects a number of students. Typically at the minute, students with hay fever, we've got many, I'm sure, with many students with hay fever at the moment, as I'm sure the primary schools have. But students, it's a particular question about asthma and students carrying their inhalers with them. But actually we have students with allergies who have EpiPens and other medical conditions that they live with. Perhaps a little bit of guidance and advice about that, Miss Browning.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sizer. So we do have students with a range of different medical needs and they vary in severity. What we do want to do is promote independence and success in later life. So, for example, students who have asthma are entitled to keep their inhaler with them. Likewise, if they have an EpiPen, then they are able to keep their EpiPen on their person. But what we would ask is that our main school office has that information and that the main school office has the details of what's required and potentially a backup, so that we have a reserve in the school office and that they are in date. And that's something that we regularly and routinely check. We do have some students, for example, who are diabetic and need that their insulin levels to be monitored throughout the course of the day. And that would be done in our Learning Support Centre at break time and lunchtime, as agreed as per the medical management plan and consult medical professionals. And that will be administered by a trained member of staff. And again, we would liaise with parents about what resources are required in school and the management of how we ensure that they are in date and that we have sufficient supplies. But we very much take a personalised approach because we know that some students will be able to manage their medical needs in a different way to others.
Thank you, Miss Browning. So there's a question here that I think I can answer. It's one we published, so some of you may have seen it already. It's about whether students need a computer or a laptop or something like that to be able to do homework. The basic answer is no. We wouldn't expect anybody to have to do their homework on a computer, but obviously many students do. And furthermore, the homework is set on ClassCharts, which is a web-based app. So you can use a computer to access that, but it's also an app on smartphones and iPads and tablets and things, so you can access it that way. So it can make life easier. Of course, over the course of the last 18 months, with the 2 lockdowns, computers have been absolutely essential, and we've given out lots and lots of computers to people who've needed them. But if you can't afford a computer, or you don't have enough computers, or actually you can afford a computer, but you've got so many children you can't possibly manage to have a computer for everybody, you shouldn't need to worry about that. Homework should not be essential on the computer. So we are almost out of time. And there's a question about, do you expect most children to get their language preference? I think probably the answer to that is we would hope so. We would hope so, but it does depend on numbers.
We do endeavour to make that possible, but we are restricted by numbers, so we will endeavour and hope that that is the case. Okay, good. I think it's probably time to wrap up. There's a couple of questions we may answer privately.
because they're about particular circumstances. But otherwise, thank you very much for coming. That's probably me. I should probably put myself on screen here. Sorry. Thank you very much for coming. And we look forward to seeing you all, or seeing all the students next week. And if you have any questions or queries or concerns, please get in touch with us at the school. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Bye for now. Highlights tonight, 11:30 on BBC One. No, not at all. Nice to see you all. Bye for now.
Good night.